So welcome to class 3 of our full HTML and CSS course. In this video, we're going to be creating this layout over here using HTML and CSS. Now, quick disclaimer before we get going, this video is for beginners and people with little knowledge of HTML. And you should be using your mobile phone just so you're getting the same result as we are over here. So I should let you know that an earlier version of the section 1 of this video have already been released before, so you don't go thinking that it's exactly the same video. So that being said, let's get right into the video. So I'm going to go over here and open my text editor, which is right over here, and then we're going to go and create a new HTML file. Now if you don't know how I got to this area, I just clicked this tray icon over here and then it lands us to this page. So what we're going to do is to click this icon here, and then we're going to give it a name of the file which we want to create. So I'm going with HTML, let's go with class -3.html and save. So just make sure you're ending it with the .html to show that this is a HTML file. Okay, so we have our body tag. So one thing we should do is to actually take a screenshot of what it is we're going to be creating, and I've already done that and I imported it right here. So this is what we're going to be creating in this video. It's pretty much a box which serves as the display, a text, and 3 buttons. So I think we can do that. Let's go over to our HTML and figure out how to do that. So to create a box, we use a special HTML element which is called div element. So let's go over here and type div and save, and we should run this. So unfortunately, we do not have any box displayed on our web page. Now what's actually going on here? Now for this box to be actually displayed, we need to give it a height, a width, and a background color. So let's go ahead and do that with CSS. Okay, so we're going to go over here in the head section and we're going to type style. So this element basically help us to write CSS code inside our HTML. And for us to be able to target this exact box or the div element, we're going to give it a class, so we can target it with CSS. So class, and then let's give it a class of box, and then we can now come over here to target this particular element. Okay, so we're going to type we're going to type dot to show this is a class, box, and then curly brackets. So in between the curly bracket, we can assign a height. So let's go with height of, let's give it a height of let's go with 50 pixels and colon, and then we can give it a width of about let's go with 90%. So this will basically take up 90% of our entire web page. So let me show you what I really mean, and let's give it a background color of red. So background color, and we can give it red. And if you should save, you discover that we have this box over here. So the reason why this was not displayed the previous time when we run it is that the image is way too small, because by default HTML gives this element a width of 0 and a height of 0, and their background color is actually transparent. So this means we can't see it. But by setting the height, the width, and the background color, we can actually give it our styles, which enables us to see this. So one thing we should do is to actually increase the height of this. So let's go over here and give it a height of 350, and if we should run, I think is good enough. And then we want it to take up this space over here, so we can give it a width of 100%. So 100%, and save, and you see it takes up the entire web page. But I'm gonna cancel this because I don't want the console showing every time. Okay, so but you can actually see some line at the borders of it, and you're actually asking, why is this line here? That's because by default HTML gives the body element some padding around this. So if you can go over to the body, let's target the body. So body, curly bracket, and then we can give it a margin of 0. So margin 0, and let's save, and you discover that it actually takes up the entire line. So this margin is gone, there's no longer spacing at the bottom. So we can clear this because we actually want that spacing over there. So clear. Okay, so we pretty much have the spacing. Now one thing we should actually do is to make the edges of this box a bit curved so it suits the design which we have. So we're gonna go And for us to do this, we're going to use a border radius. So border radius, okay, and we're going to set it to, let's go with 5. Okay, let's go with something way bigger. Let's go with 80 pixels and save. And you discover that our box is now 80 pixels round, but we don't actually want that, so let's just go ahead and decrease it so it actually suits our design. So 5 pixels, I think this should be okay. So it's not too much, but it's actually covering and giving it that nice curvy background. Okay, so the next thing we should do is actually change our background color, and we actually looked on how to do this in our previous video. So for this, we're going to use a CSS property called background color, or background, anyone will work, but let's go with background color. And then we're going to set it to the color which we have over here. Okay, so to get this exact color over here, I use a tool called color picker. So we can go over here and then look at the tool right here. So I'm going to click it, and then one thing I should do is to actually import this image. So I already had a screenshot of it, so I'm going to go over here and import it. Now I can now select any color from this image, so I'm going to go over here and then select this color. So click over here, and then we can pretty much replace it with the red which we have over here. So we're going to replace it with this color which we have over here, and if we should save, that's exactly what we get. So we get this color right here. So I think we are pretty much done with the box, and then we are going to go ahead and start creating the buttons. Now to create buttons, I actually discussed how to do this in our previous video, which is actually discussed this in lesson 1 and 2, but in case you're new, I'm just going to show you how to do that, but feel free to pause this video to try that out yourself. So to create a button, we're going to type button, and then we're going to clear this because we don't want it to be disabled. But in most times, I don't think you actually see that always there, but in case it do appear, you need to clear it out so your button don't get disabled. So you can try out how it will look if you don't clear it out. Okay, so let's go over to the image and check what is inside the button. So we're going to go over here, and then in the first button we have the first letter is A, second button we have the second letter is B, and in the third button we have the first letter is H. Okay, so let's go over here and create buttons for that. So we're going to type 1 and cap lock, the first letter is A, and then if you should run this, we actually see that button over here. So let's start styling it and make it look like what we have in our final design. So for this, we're going to give it a class so we can be able to target it in CSS, and I'm going to actually change this to small letters. Okay, so class, and then let's give it a class of btn, which is short for button. So we can come over here and target it with our CSS. So we're going to type dot btn to show that that's a class, and then curly brackets. So in between the curly bracket, we can now start giving our size. So the first thing we're going to do is to increase the height. So height, and then let's go with 50 pixels, and let's save. And I think it's way too small, so let's go with 70 pixels, and I think this is good. So later we can compare it with our final design, and let's give it a width of 100%, so it takes up 100% of our web page. So we're going to give it width, and then we're going to set it to 100%, and colon, and run. Yes, now you see it takes up 100% of our web page. So one thing we're going to do is to actually increase this text over here. So for this, we're going to type font, that's size, and we're going to set it to 30. Now let's go with something small, 20 pixels, comma, and save. And I think this is good. We can work with this, and now let's make the text a bit bold. So font, width, and then let's make it 500 for it to be bold, and then let's save, and I think it's good. So we can decrease this or increase this. So if we go with let's go with 1000 and see how it goes, and you see that our text is way too bold. And if we should reduce it to just 100, and you see that it's 10. so like it's not actually bold. So let's just keep it at 500, which is a medium rate. And yep, so it's pretty much good like this. And then the next thing we're going to do is to change the background color. So I actually showed you how to do this. Is background color, and then we're going to go over to our color picker, which is right over here, and then we're going to select the color for this button. So over here, and then it's actually gold, so we can come over here and paste. So if you should run this, so it actually looks like the color in our final design. And one thing we should do is to actually get rid of these lines around it. So for this, those are called borders, so we can just set the border to none, so we do not have any border at all. And then if we should run this, discover that we do not have any borders at all. So we can set the border radius to make the button a bit curvy, border radius, and then we can set it to 10 since the button is quite a bit rounded than the display. So 10 and colon, and you see that the button is nicely round. Okay, so one thing we should do is to actually give spacing between the screen, which is the display, and the button. So for this, we're going to type margin. So mind you, the margin actually gives space at the outside of the element. So if you actually assign a margin to the button, and let's go with margin top and set it to 50 pixels just for illustration, and you notice that it actually gives spacing at the top of this place by 50 pixels gap at the top of this place. If you should set it to 500 pixels, and you see it gives 500 pixels space. Okay, so let's go back to 50, and then we can give it a margin left. Mind you, you don't have to follow in this part of the video. I'm just doing this for illustration purposes. So we can give it a margin left of 50 pixels, and it actually gives 50 pixels of space at the left. And then we can give it margin right and run, and you actually see it gives 50 pixels to the right of this image. Okay, so let's go back with margin top, and let's reduce this to about, let's go with 10 pixels, and then let's save. And I think this is good, so the spacing is okay. So let's go ahead and create the second and the third button. So one thing we should actually do is to copy this first button and just paste it 3 times, since they actually have almost the same design. Apart from the text, everything is pretty much the same. So we can come over here and we can copy this, copy, and then come right over here and we can paste and paste. Okay, so let's run this, and we see we have 3 buttons. So at this point, let's just compare this with our final design and check if they actually correspond. Okay, so yep, and let's check our design, and yep, so I noticed that our button is a bit smaller than what we have. So I'm gonna go over here and increase the button size, so the height, and let's make it 80 and save. And let's compare with our final project, and let's check, run, and I think it's pretty much good. So one thing we should actually do is to actually change this color over here from white to the color which we have on our final project, which is the darker color of this one we have over here. So again, we are going to go over to our color picker and select that exact color. So come over here, and I think it's pretty much at this point. Okay, sorry. So let's go over here, and then let's select this color. So, and then let's actually change the color. So you might be asking, how do we actually change the background color? Now if you come over to our HTML, you can see that everything we have been writing in this video is actually inside our body element, or the HTML element. We actually contain them inside our body element. Now if we should go over here and change the background color of our body element, you will see that it actually reflects on the background of our page. Okay, so let's go body, and then curly bracket, and in between the curly bracket, let's give it a background color of what we actually copied from the color picker. So paste and comma, and then let's check this, and you see that it actually gives this nice looking layout. and it's looking much like what we have in our final project. So if you have made it this far, congratulations, and it's time to add some effect to all these buttons over here, so it kind of feels interactive. Okay, so one thing we should do is to add some effect to the button, so when we actually click the button can actually feel as if it has been clicked. Okay, so to add some effect, you're gonna use the pseudo class, which is hover. Now I actually showed you how to do this in our previous video, so if you're complete noob to this and you're just hearing for the first time, I probably recommend you should check out that video. Okay, button btn, which is what we want to add an effect to, so hover and then curly bracket. So what this basically does is that it adds extra styling to this button whenever we hover across it. Now let me show you what I mean. So if you should change the background color dash color to red, and we run this, discover whenever we hover across this, it actually turns red, and when we are not hovering, it goes back to the actual position. So that's pretty much the basics of hover effect. Okay, so let's go back, and then instead of selecting red, let's actually select something natural, something they actually use more often in quiz apps. So they normally use green, and we're going to be selecting light green. Okay, for this I'm going to go over to my color picker and I'm going to select the database, and then let's search for green, and here, so this color is pretty much good. Let's try it out. So we're just going to copy the hex code of this and then replace it with the red which we have on our page. So paste and save, and whenever I click on this, this actually goes green and it's pretty much looking natural. So one thing we want to do is to actually make the text go white, not black, because it actually looks off when it's black. So let's go over here, and to change the text color, we're going to use a CSS property which is called color. So this will basically change the color of the text inside the element. Okay, so we're going to set this to white, comma, and then let's save. And when we are clicking on this, the text actually goes white, and when we're not clicking, it goes back to its initial color. Okay, so I think we're pretty much done with this, but one thing we need to do is to actually add some transition to this so it actually happens a bit more smoothly, just like. Okay, so for this we're going to go over to this btn over here, and then we're going to type transition, and then what we are going to transition, so we want to transition the background color. So the background color takes a bit of time, so dash color, and then how long do we want to transition this? So let's go with 2 seconds, just to show you what I mean here. This and press it, you see it actually takes 2 seconds for the whole effect to take place. So we can actually change the transition of the color so it actually matches that. So let's transition the color, so we're going to put a comma and then color, and then how long do we want to transition in? So let's actually go with 2 seconds again, so it actually matches that of the background color. So when we click on this, the whole thing takes 2 seconds, and when we are not clicking, it takes 2 seconds for it to go back to its initial color. So 2 seconds is quite a long time to wait for a transition, so let's actually reduce it to something more natural. Let's go with 0.3. so this is standard transition count, and then let's change it to 0.3 as well, and then let's run, and when you click on it, see it actually takes 0.3 seconds for the whole effect to take place. Okay, so one thing we should actually do is actually add transition on this box, so whenever we are holding the box, it actually shows that we are touching it. Okay, so we can go over to the box, and then we can select the box and colon over curly bracket, and now it's time to add extra styling. So the only thing we want to do is to make this lighter whenever we are clicking on it, so it actually goes a bit bright, and then when we're not clicking on it, it actually goes back to its normal color. Okay, to do this, we're gonna go back to our color picker. So we're gonna go over here and make a bit of blend with white, blend it with a bit of white, so it actually produce a lighter color. And yep, so I think this is good. And then you can now change the background color, dash color, and paste this, and then comma. So let's try it out if it actually works. So when we are clicking on this, it actually goes light, and then when we are not clicking, it actually goes bright and dark. Okay, so one thing we should do is to actually change it from hover to active, and then you're going to see why we should do that in a bit. So when we're clicking on this, it actually goes white, and when we just remove our hand, it actually goes back to its normal condition. Whereas in hover, you have to click something else for it to actually go back to its initial color. Okay, one other thing we need to do is to add a transition to this so it actually goes smoothly. So over here we can type transition, and then what it is we want to transition. So in this case is the background color dash color, and then how long do we want to transition it? Let's go with a natural something. Let's go with 0.3 seconds and save, and you see that it actually goes smoothly. Okay, so pretty much think this is all. So you can feel free to add extra styling to this, and so that's all. So if you enjoyed this video, my name is Dave, and all I do here in this channel is to create fun and educative videos like this that will pretty much help you as a beginner. So if that sounds interesting to you, or if that's something you want to see in the future, please do well to subscribe, like, and comment, but at least just subscribe to this channel to keep us going. Okay, till then, keep coding. And just before you go out, if there's anything you want to tell me, or if you're having errors with your code, you can pretty much leave a comment in the comment section, and I'll happily preview that. Okay, till then, keep coding, and I'll see you in the next class.